Hey everybody, Matt Deutschman here, going live today. Gonna have an awesome conversation with Katie Williams, my amazing illustrator that's worked on each of my first two books and my third, which is coming soon. And we're gonna have a big announcement with regard to that in a little bit. Bear with me as I invite Katie here. Here, here she is. Katie, you here? Katie, are you with me? Hmm. Technical difficulties? I don't know. Katie, if you can hear me, I have invited you. Feel free to join. I see that you're here, but you are not live talking to me yet. So feel free to hop on. I could filibuster a little bit and talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about. Oh, here we go. Even better.
Okay.
How's it going?
Pretty good. How about you?
Good.
I hope I'm on because like I've been
You're
trying to
on.
connect with my computer and it's not working for some reason. So
You're
anyway,
on.
okay.
I think Instagram works better on mobile anyway.
That's true.
So,
Yeah.
so here we go. Well, thanks for joining me. I was excited for this conversation. I think
Me too. I was looking
we've got
forward to
a
it.
lot to talk about. Cool. So, for anyone who's watching who doesn't already know Katie, or for anyone who's watching because, of course, they came to see Katie and who doesn't know me, I'll just do a quick background that Katie and I met at some point, I think midway through, maybe like late 2019,
Yep.
when I had sort of, hey Joelda, welcome. When I had sort of put together this goofy story about God banging the drums to help my kids not be afraid of the thunder. And I decided maybe I could turn this into a book. And then a mutual friend of ours connected Katie and me, and we talked about getting a project going throughout the rest of 2019 and then into early 2020.
Mm.
COVID hit in March of 2020. We put everything on hold for just a bit. And then late 2020, we kind of restarted our conversation, got everything going, and around Thanksgiving of 2020, we released this book, my first, not Katie's first, but my first, When You Hear the Thunder Rumble, which was an amazing experience going through, and just really proud of that. And it was a really incredible um, experience working together with Katie because I was so impressed by her professionalism and her talent and her ability to take my chicken scratch words on an unlined piece of paper in random directions and then bring it to life as an actual book. And I always said at the outset, if I could have the book just to read with my kids, that's the goal, and then anything else is gravy. But
Yeah.
it became a lot of fun and decided to really make a legitimate endeavor out of it. So last year, we released our second collaboration together, When You Think of Monsters Lurking, which I think we both even like expanded our creativity from the first book experience, and then um, we've got our third one in the works right now, which we'll talk a little bit about. And I think there's even more meat to that one than even in the first two. So I'm really excited to release that and share it. So Katie, welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Of course. Glad to be here.
So can you just maybe talk about like how you got started, how you did you always want to be an illustrator growing up when you were a kid? Were you always artistic?
Yes, I was always artistic. I've been drawing for as long as I could remember, and usually starting off just inspired by like TV shows and movies growing up. I mean, I was a 90s kid, so that was the golden time for, Disney coming back with Little Mermaid and Aladdin. Those type of shows always inspired me. And eventually I started becoming even more interested in writing my own stories and creating my own characters and moving off like that. And going off of there, I wanted to do something more with animation. Like I figured that's kind of where I wanted to go. And I went to art school for that. And a couple years after graduating there, I was working for a printing company for a couple years. It didn't work out, unfortunately, but I still enjoyed my time there. And I was updating my resume and my online portfolio with some of the illustrations that I was working on during the time while I was working at that company. And someone reached out to me shortly after saying, you know, I really enjoy your illustration work. I think we should collaborate on a book together. And so, and that was 2011 when that first.
Gotcha. So yeah, tell me about that. So I know that you know, our first book together in 2020 was not your first book. You had taken a little bit of a hiatus from some of the books you had done previously when your kids were smaller. But your first book that you did in 2011, you wrote with like it was a child author, right?
It was
you collaborated with?
Yeah, it was a children's author. I didn't write it with her. Her dad was trying to start a publishing company and was really inspired by what his daughter was writing. His daughter really wanted to write books that were not only, you know, good for children, but good for children of her skin color. There weren't many books that featured African American kids, and she really wanted to get in touch with that. And by writing this book, Lila Light in a Library Tree, excuse me, it was just it was a wonderful opportunity, and I loved working with them and seeing, you know, especially what she was writing, because it wasn't just about, you know, colored characters being the lead for once, but it was also about understanding the power of the written word and how that can overcome technology, especially, I mean, coming into today's world, we have so many different versions of iPads, tablets, and TV, streaming devices, and we sometimes get lost in a fray, but we have to remember that, you know, reading and writing is just as fun and just as powerful as the media, the technical media.
So and that was in 2011, so kind of prophetic in a way, right? To see where we are now, the expansion of social media, which we're on right now, just to even have this conversation, by the way. Instagram exists in 2011, so that's cool. Yeah, so Lila Light and the Library Tree, and then there was a sequel to that, right? And then you had another, and the author of that book, was it Ladaya Ricketts? Was that her name?
Yeah, Ricketts. Yeah.
Okay. And how old was she when she wrote the book?
I think she was, oh gosh, I want to say 9 or 10. I might be wrong though.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Good for her. That's really cool. That's really inspirational. And so, and I know, you know, so you mentioned that some of your inspiration came from, you know, as a child, you were really into Disney.
Yeah.
And so I want to show this book that you recently released, this kind of like sequel to Cinderella, which I think is really cool. And we've been reading it at home. Gotten a great kick out of it. It's a really interesting story about how, you know, well, I'm not gonna spoil too much of it, but I highly recommend y'all get it and check it out. It's about, you know, kind of what happens after Cinderella and the prince get hitched. As it turns out, things weren't, you know, perfect in Dreamland and in Cinderella and their palace and their kingdom and everything. So they really needed some help getting out of financial ruin, and Cinderella was able to save the day.
Yeah.
So, I thought it was a really cool book, and something that that is just always noticeable about your illustration style. I can always see the way that you illustrate people, the way you draw kids, is you've got a real, like, there's a similarity to how you know, have, this is another book, Fast Life, which Katie collaborated with also, and you could just see like the way she designs facial expressions is, you've definitely got your own unique recognizable style, which I think is really cool.
Thank you.
So how did you hone your style? Because that's something I think, you know, all illustrators have their own, like when you see someone's book, you can say, oh, that, like I think I have another book that was illustrated by that same illustrator, right? So like how did you develop your style, and how did you decide on, you know, certain attributes of how you draw the you know,
Oh,
human form and everything else that you do?
gosh, lots of years in practice, that's for sure. Like, I mean, it's funny because I always look to other artists and animators too, as far as their goes, and I say, okay, I think I could do something like this, but I want to copy it. But how do I do something like this and make it my own? I just kind of had to like play around with shapes a lot and play around with expressions and um, poses, especially because
Mhm.
a lot of the expressions comes with how we pose the characters. Because I mean, as much as facial expressions help, there's always the body element too. You have to make, you know, it all tells the story. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, the movement. And so something I want to show that always got me really interested, if you don't mind that I show this, you can kind of see into my world, my computer here. This is Katie's rendering of my second book, When You Think a Monster's Lurking. And you could see these blue lines on the bottom, on the floor, that kind of all gravitate back to this pinpoint here. And you could see the sketch and really how this evolved. I think it's really cool. This, just seeing how you developed that was really interesting and insightful for me to see how you have to kind of plan out, make sure everything's on the same plane, know where like the, you know, the center point of the background is going to be, and everything kind of emanating out from there. So I could definitely see how, you know, it's all about perspective and trying to get the, you know, if they're posing, but if this is really like the center point, where are they going to have to be oriented and everything? It's a really, there's a lot that goes into it that is way beyond what the lay person would think of if you're not an illustrator yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And so, and for another little share, this is where we were. This is where I was before meeting Katie. All right. This is my idea of when you hear the thunder rumble, like a hippo took a tumble. Don't be scared. Don't be glum. It's just God banging his drum. And then here's what we get when we professionalize it quite a bit. You get something that actually looks like a hippo, and stairs that are straight, that would you know, be up to building code. And then you get this really cool image of a drum, with the, you know, the essence of God in the background. So love that. And then we came, you know, once we added color to it, just quick show how that looks on page 1
Mm-hmm.
of the book. Pretty amazing to see that evolution, right? So take me through your process, and like how you get started first, and then how you know, at what point do you add color, at what point do you start adding certain elements to really bring it to life in full form?
Yeah, I mean, when at the very beginning is if once the, when the text is all ready, that's what I pay closer attention to. I read the text at least 4 or 5 different times just to make sure I understand where the story's going, and B,
Mm.
what kind of like go through all the visualizations that I'm going through. Because I mean, the first time you read something, you kind of get a spark of an idea of like, okay, I can kind of see, you know, this character looking like this, or this setting looking like this. But after you read a couple more times, things will start to change and modify as you visualize everything. So, like in regards to your second book, The Monsters Lurking, um, I loved all the visualizations of like, you know, being um, scaring the monster away by, you know, hitting a home run, hitting him out of the ballpark, or turning him into a science experiment and exploding him away. Like those type of things were just so exactly. They were just so powerful, but there wasn't really anybody doing anything in that text. So that's when I came to you. I was like, you know, would it be okay if I created monsters, like actual visual monsters, to be representative of
Yes.
common fears like being afraid of the dark, being afraid of shadows, being afraid of random noises in the night. Those things are so common, and yet we don't have a face to it. So I thought that would have been a really neat idea, was to create those monsters and make it something that the kids can say, oh yeah, those are the monsters I'm afraid of. Here's what I can do to make them go away.
I love it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so we came up with, Katie came up with these 3 different monsters. We've got the darkness monster, the shadow monster, and the noise monster, all of which do their own little part to wreak havoc around the house. And then I wrote up these little descriptions of each one, and then we even created coloring pages for each of the monsters. And my kids love those coloring pages, and it actually, it really helps, you know, when you know, when it's dark, if either of my kids are going through a little bout of being afraid of the dark, you know, I could just say something. I could reference the darkness monster and say, hey, remember you colored the darkness monster picture, and you know, you know all about the darkness monster. He likes to unscrew the light bulbs, and he likes to, you know, take his webbed wings to block the sun and block the light. Mm-hmm. You could always overcome that, you know that, and then, you know, so it was a really interesting way of personifying those fears, both to help with the imagery of the book, but it's even helped, I think, in just relating the book to real life to kind of calm some of the fears that the kids naturally have. So.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Good.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing about your work in you know, being an illustrator and the creative work that you do?
Oh, that is a good question. Honestly, I love the preparation of it. Like when I first get the book and I start going through the text and start playing around with ideas, I love going through my sketches and coming up with a rough layout and just kind of seeing what works and what doesn't work. I mean, the finalization of it all with the color and everything is beautiful too. I love seeing it all come to fruition, but I have the most fun when I'm actually coming up with the ideas and doing the sketches.
Yeah, because that's where I think I could relate to that, because that's where you're taking it from like abstract to concrete. That's like the first step of like really seeing it come to, and that's been my favorite part in working with you on this project, also on all these projects also, is that like, because I don't, our brains obviously work very differently. When I write these stories, I don't always have any way of like envisioning what it would actually look like, you know, and then when you put it on paper and I could see it, like it's sometimes my wildest imagination couldn't have come up with something that you come up with. Okay. So that's why we're a good team. Yep. So without further ado, I'm gonna do a little share of our 3rd collaboration together, which is another book in the same series. So the first book, When You Hear the Thunder Rumble. And by the way, Katie's background working in the printing industry, she probably sees my Pantone book here, and that's my you know, my business is Double Take Promotional Marketing. We do promotional products, so we're kind of in that same industry. That's why it was such an easy collaboration when we also did some swag to you know, promote the books. So the 3rd collaboration, the 3rd book in the series, the first book was When You Hear the Thunder Rumble, 2nd book, When You Think a Monster's Lurking. So we've covered all our bases with kids not being afraid of thunderstorms, not being afraid of darkness, shadows, or weird noises in the house. Well, what's another just common thing that parents struggle with their kids, or that kids struggle with, and they really need to be able to use their imagination to overcome? Because that's what the essence of all of this is like taking some concept that kids have a difficulty with and just tapping into their imagination. Because we all know there is no one on this planet more creative than little kids. They are the most creative, imaginative people. And I don't know why, but that seems to like wane as we get older. So we got to do something to harness that creativity with a common issue, which is eating interesting, healthy foods. So this is our 3rd book that's coming out. When you think, am I even showing? I don't even know what I'm showing here. When you try a food that's icky. And as you saw from that cover, you see that there's a taste bud actually hanging out on our little buddy's tongue, trying to keep broccoli out of his mouth. And that was that's kind of like another extension of Katie coming up with the monsters to personify to personify what those fears were all about. We take the taste buds and we actually have them involved in the story, trying to prevent the food, but we're trying to convince the taste buds that the food's all going to be yummy if they just give it a try. So. So without giving too much away, because we want to make sure we tease this over the course of the next few months, the book will be released fully this summer. What has been just some of the highlights in your experience working on this new book?
Well, doing the taste bud characters, first of all, that was a blast. And then also taking adding some of my personal touches to it too, because I have a nephew who's been a picky eater pretty much from the get-go. His favorite foods for the longest time were waffles and French fries from Culver's. It had to be from Culver's. Couldn't be from anyone. And
I didn't know they had waffles. I had to try that.
Well, I don't know about their waffles, but waffles in general.
No, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, he's gotten a lot better since then. I thought, how cool would it be, especially for him, to have a little part in this book. So I was, with your permission, I asked, is it okay to put Johnny in this book? And that's what I did. And I told my sister about it, and she was like, oh my gosh, Johnny's going to flip with this. Oh my gosh. And so I'm really excited to share this with him, especially, and my kids too. They think it's hilarious. So.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah. And I mean, I won't lie. I take a lot of the food and a lot of the stories. It's inspiration from my kids and other kids I know. So, I mean, that's where it all comes from, right? So of course, we want to infuse your nephew in there and give him shout outs as we read this book, as we release it. And, and of course, as with both of my other books, there is a song that matches with this book. So we'll be sharing that as the time comes. And this time we're actually printing the song in the book. We were going to have some food recipes, some funny things that you could do to just make healthy food more appealing for the little ones. So that's the aim of this book. And I think that it's, personally, it's my favorite of the three. I think it's the best one yet. So I'm really excited about it. And I'm just really excited that we got to share that and share what the cover looks like. And we're gonna have a lot more information over the next few months as we launch this in the summer. So any other just final thoughts, Katie, or any other just really cool things about your work as an illustrator that you think would be cool to share?
Gosh, honestly, I didn't expect this career path to take off as it did. Working on the Light and the other books, even before, I was still trying to figure out where my place would be in the art world. Like, did I want to keep being an illustrator, or did I want to try something else, something that's a little more financially stable or whatever? But even as coming across these other illustration projects and being introduced to other authors who wanted to work with me, it was still just exciting, and just I feel like I'm on the right path now, and I'm hoping forward things will just continue to progress. And honestly, I'm very happy with how things have turned around for me in that respect. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm grateful to be a part of it. And so what would you say to an aspiring illustrator, for a kid out there who loves drawing? My kids love drawing. I mean, you never know when they're 6 and 4 what their future is going to hold. What advice would you give to a kid, in the 12 or under range, or even older than that, who may want to go into art, may want to go into illustration for a career path?
I would say go for it. I mean, there's going to be stumbles, there's going to be mistakes, and that's part of life, But if you're continually inspired, if you're continually trying to improve on your style and how you want to see the world, go for it. It'll just unfold for you, and you will add something that the world hasn't seen yet, and you should just go for it.
Love it. Great advice. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Really hope you enjoyed this conversation. You can always check out all of my work at mattdeutschmann.com. And that's where you can find my books, the coloring pages that Katie developed that go along with the books, some videos of story times, and even some videos of the songs that I've written and that we've performed that go with the books, and more updates on when the third book comes out. Katie, what's your website? I want to make sure that we share that so everybody can be directed toward your work as well.
It's katiejwilliams.com.
katiejwilliams.com. Awesome. And yeah, as everyone knows, all the books that we've talked about, that we've shared, are available through Amazon, and usually available in most bookstores also. You can go into a Barnes & Noble. You can go on barnesandnoble.com, access our books. You can go to Barnes & Noble or any local bookstore and request these books if you want to support a local privately owned bookstore. You can go in and request my book. You can request, I imagine, the other books that Katie's collaborated on. They may not have it in stock, but they can order it for you and have it, within a couple days. So that's always available, and all the books are available everywhere. But for more information, it's best to go to our websites, and that's where you can really start your journey. So mattdeutschmann.com, katiejwilliams.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. Keep tuning into all these author talks. I'll be doing a lot more with other authors. We'll be talking about all this creative, fun work, and just all these great resources for kids to learn and to read and expand their imaginations. And we'll have more updates on the next book, When You Try a Food That's Icky, that's coming out this summer. So thanks, everybody. Thank you, Katie, for joining me.
Thank you.
And see you soon.
Yeah.
Bye.